Coming to you live from the offices of Chapter One Films in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is the 4D Podcast with your hosts, Nathanael Levinson, Greg Prinz, and Liam Maxwell. A new dimension in entertainment. This is the 4D Podcast.
You guys look good, man.
I feel good.
I'm going to flex the entire hour like this.
Yeah. It's welcome to the gun show. This is legal in the state of North Carolina. So yeah, it's like sliding off the hair.
Learn your hair,
geez,
Liam. I'm
not used to this long of hair. I've never had this long of hair in my entire life.
It's been a while. Dude, you've let it go, man.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to tell you about your hair.
Yeah, quick. We had a podcast last Thursday, and it was way shorter than it is right now.
You got some impressive follicles, man.
I finally got it back.
I take a haircut every
it took forever.
Nathaniel
but
looks great.
All I had to do was watch Con Air, and my hair grew back.
Magical abilities.
And I used to when I had hair, I had an afro, and my hair grew back like this. I've never had hair like this before. It's
more like Con Hair.
Con Hair.
Am I right?
Yeah.
That's the power of Con Air.
I saw Nicolas Cage wink, and I just felt the follicles go. Poof.
Also, I didn't know Nicolas Cage could grow his hair out like that.
I didn't.
Dude.
Maybe I feel like his hairline.
I think it's the power of Con Air.
Was it?
Yeah.
I think his hair wasn't like that, and then the director said, "Okay, so this is the character you're playing," and his hair just grew.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to make some male hair improvement medicinal thing and call it Con
like
Air.
Keeps, but it's even better.
Hair.
Con Hair.
Hair with an
It's pretty
H.
good.
Yeah.
This is where we branch off. We do our podcast stuff, but then we're looking for other business avenues.
Well, we can't get a sponsor, so we gotta fund ourselves. Jakob has not paid our checks in the last month or so.
Dude, Jakob, this is
He didn't
a
like
movie
the fact that we
I
watched.
feel like
he didn't
would
like.
not
He didn't
watch.
like that
Yeah,
we
he
watched
wouldn't like
Fantastic Mr. Fox. He was like, "Why are you watching this baby kid?" That was Arnold. Sorry. Why are you watching this? This is a baby movie for kids. Why are you watching this? I don't like it.
Yeah, he watched it and he was like,
Hey, I don't like him.
Yes. Record time. So we got that out there.
"Oh
Bonara.
man,
Hey, I don't like him.
Hey, I don't like him.
I don't like him.
Such a good.
Dude, John Malkovich is he's in a tier of his own after his Con Air performance.
he's really legend status after
Yeah.
that movie.
He's just
He
like
is-
so not. They explain his behavior by saying, "Oh yeah, when he was in the clink, he got like 3 PhDs, so he's really smart now. So he talks like he's like maximum autistic." You're like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
I was like, I know some pretty smart people.
They don't
and
talk
they
like
don't
that.
Talk like
The
that.
greatest line is, I forget what the beginning of it is, but it ends with penal lore.
Yeah, you know,
And we all know my tendency for
Proclivities.
my proclivities for penal lore.
And often lamented in penal lore.
legendary and often lamented
That's
in
the one.
penal
I was like,
lore.
oh, so you got all these PhDs and you became an asshole.
It's so
all
weird
of a
because
sudden.
he doesn't ever get. He gets mad, but he's never like rage. Like he's always just like annoyed.
I think the maddest he gets is when
Yeah.
is the soundbite. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Greg, hit us.
Hey, I don't like him.
Just like
Which is hilarious.
Like,
That's
it's
the
like
maddest
peeved. He's peeved
Yeah, he's
throughout the
peeved.
movie.
He's not even all that angry that he's about to get his head smashed by the smasher at the end. He
He's
just
just
kind of
like,
accepts it.
I hate
but,
you.
Spoiler alert.
But when he hears Scottish boy speaking in an American
but see,
accent,
here's
he
the
just,
thing.
I don't like him.
he just can't hold it back.
Cole
Breaks
Meany
out.
really
Meany.
drives
breaks
him
out
crazy.
of there.
Cole
penal-
Meany's accent, I love Cole Meany, but man, his accent was all over the place.
Yeah. He should just stick with his.
Yeah,
why
for
doesn't he
those
just
of you who
talk like
don't
he
know,
does stuff?
he's Scottish, and he's
Yeah.
like very Scottish. Have you seen him on Star Trek? That's his natural accent.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do like a hard talking New York kind of, and you're like, oh boy, those do not match
I mean,
up
he could have
good.
just done his
Boyd.
voice. Like, there was really no reason why he needed to do an accent. Like, he could have just done his voice.
You'd be like, why?
very
What is this
easily.
Scottish guy trying to be a police officer guy for? This is absurd.
Unbelievable.
So we watched Con Air. For those who
haven't
didn't know,
gotten
in
him.
preparation for National Con Air Day, which is July
Yes.
14th.
mark it on your
This
calendars.
is our pre-dry run test pilots of
Test pilot, if you will.
Yeah, our test pilot of Con Air.
But tell him why we watched
But,
it.
Yeah, so
This time around.
it was 1 year ago on Tuesday, so it was February 27th. It was Nathaniel, John Boney, DQ, and
I
myself.
wasn't there. I had already seen this movie.
Yeah, and actually Nathaniel wasn't there.
And me.
And I said you. I said
did you? I thought you said Nathaniel.
Liam, John Boney, and DQ. We all we watched Con Air. Just a couple doe-eyed individuals, not really ready for what we were about to experience, and we lost our minds. I mean, we were so excited after that movie.
So premise, like Greg was like, "Hey, we're gonna watch Con Air on whatever day it was.
Yeah.
You're gonna be there." I'm like, "Oh, no, I can't be there." Yeah, have you ever seen Con Air? No. Oh, dude, this movie's insane. He's like, yeah, Nicolas Cage. I know. He didn't know.
I know. We could never
no idea.
have been prepared for what.
like-
For our life was going to change forever.
Like, I
At
have
that
bits and pieces of memory of this movie, like as a kid, and as it just kind of running in the background on TV. I didn't really grasp it, and then I got to sit down and watch it. And like, what? How would you describe that time watching that first time, Liam?
I know I exaggerate a lot when it comes to my movie takes. I don't know if I can remember a movie viewing experience that changed me more than the first time I saw Con Air.
And the second time, it made all your hair grow.
I was like, I was so, you know what was interesting about it? I'm not a big action guy. I'm not a big, was it 80s, 90s?
Oh,
probably
it's
action?
very, it's 97, so
Okay,
late
it's 97.
90s.
I'm not a big action guy, to tell you the truth. And like this kind of action is not in my wheelhouse. So I was not expecting much. And because I wasn't expecting much, and because it is such an incredible film, that combination blew my brain. We had to like call. I was like telling people. I told everybody.
We called Nathaniel.
I was texting
Yeah.
everybody.
Greg called me and was like, dude, this movie's insane. I'm like, yeah, I told you. He's like, no, it's insane. I was like, yeah, I told you.
yeah.
The thing is,
No,
when
no,
you
you
tell
don't get
people
it.
it's insane, you can't really convey, like you can't convey in words. You tell people, oh, this is crazy. John Malkovich is like a ridiculous human being and he dies 4 times in the movie. And you're like, yeah, whatever. But then you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh, he actually dies 4 times and it doesn't kill him.
like the movie.
And he still might not be dead.
He still might not be dead. We do not have a confirmed corpse on him, so he might not have died.
I mean, and it's so funny because it seems like one of those. It's not. It's corny. It's a corny movie.
Oh, for sure.
For sure, but in a good way.
Yeah, but it's like I'm saying that it's amazing with zero
Yeah, it's
irony.
like,
No,
it's
me as
campy.
well. Me as
It's
well. Zero
campy,
irony.
but it's like it's super heartfelt and it's got great characters and the dialogue is fantastic.
Dialogue
and,
is great.
Yeah, obviously, it's like it's absurd. It's absurd to the max. It's like Michael Bay level absurd, but it pulls it off so well because
Yes.
the characters are great, the story is great, and as ridiculous as everything that happens is, like all the characters and the character arcs are actually great, and it ends on like a really powerful
They
emotional
make
beat.
sense, and it's got a great ending. It's like
great
who
ending.
doesn't want to watch them?
ending.
It's like watching military dads come home to their
Yeah.
kids. Like you could watch those videos all day on YouTube. Like right, you could just sit there and watch like military dads walk in behind their kids, and the kid turns around, starts crying. Like it's just amazing. You'll see that every time. Like you'll watch that every time you see it. And this movie is like 2 hours of that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's showing the
It's pretty
entire
fantastic.
war and then the return of the military dad,
Yes.
all in one 2 hour.
It's
block.
good. It's so good, and he's a good dad. Which he kept saying was Celine Dion, but it was
not Celine Dion.
as it turns out.
I
As
would
it
have
turns
bet
out
my,
now,
bet my mortgage that
I
was
will
Celine
say
Dion. I don't know
I've
why.
never seen Leanne Rimes and Celine Dion in the same room at the same time. So
They have to be very similar.
I'm just saying.
They have to be very
I'm
similar.
not now. Am I saying that I have a weird conspiracy theory where they're the same person? No, I'm
Seems
not
like
saying
that's what you're
that.
implying.
I'm
You would never
implying that.
say
But I'm
that.
not
Between the
saying
lines.
that. I'm not saying it.
It's a bit strange.
Mostly because of libel laws.
Oh, so good though.
Hey,
And I will say,
I don't like him.
this is the kind of movie that I feel like very easily could have been absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the,
it
like,
was.
it could have. And they've made movies, I'm sure, since Con Air, infinite movies trying to recreate this magic, and they've probably all been really bad movies.
Yeah.
Like it's a genre, it's a premise that could really go horribly wrong very quickly.
It seems,
But it never
it
does.
seems like it could have only been done the way that it was done for it to have the result. Like, if you replace any of the
Anything,
characters
yeah.
with, like,
See,
if
here-
John Malkovich
here's-
isn't John Malkovich,
If that movie tries to get made today, it goes one of two ways. Either it's super serious, like your White House Downs or Eagle Down or whatever it is, and then it's just kind of like not fun. Like Cy would just be this psychotic guy who's just murdering people, and it's no fun at all. And the little girl would definitely have died. Or right? Or the other way is it's like it's got Channing Tatum in it, and he's just a total goofball, and it's like meta jokes the whole time, and everyone's cracking wise. But no, it's a very funny movie, but it's not a comedy. It's just a campy action movie.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things to laugh at, but it's not telling you jokes.
Yeah.
It's not like, and I really feel like in the last 10 years, we haven't seen movies that have the kind of 80s, 90s sense of humor where it's a funny movie, but no one in the movie is like deliberately making jokes.
That is one of the, like, and it's hard to put your finger on how it's happening, other than calling it just self-aware humor.
Not that I would say that it doesn't work in any context, but it is that, and it started with it's Joss Whedon humor.
Yeah, it's
and I like some stuff that Joss Whedon has done, but that brand of humor, while it does work sometimes, it's very quickly gets overdone, and Disney Marvel has just like hammered into the ground. But now it's like every action movie has to also have the comedic guy saying, "Isn't it funny that we're blasting people with lasers?" Like, no, just blast people with lasers,
right?
Well, it's and then be a humorous character with your interactions with other people.
It is an interesting balance they strike because they are humorous individuals.
Yeah,
John Malkovich is funny, but he's
very
not
funny, but he's not
a joke.
Yeah, he's not joking around.
He's not like you take him seriously. He's still in his intentions.
In the movie, he finds himself to be very serious, right? Like in that movie, he's playing somebody who thinks very highly of themselves. They've established him as, again, it's kind of silly how they're like, oh, he's smart, and then so he just starts like spewing off nonsense, like really long sentences to sound even smarter. But they've also established him as being wise enough to have concocted this whole idea. Right, so you're like, okay, I can respect who this guy is. Like he has introduced himself as somebody to be feared. I can laugh at the fact that he's John Malkovich, but he's not laughing at the fact that he's John Malkovich. Like that's where like you watch The Force Awakens and or sorry, the Last Jedi. What's the second one? TLJ, The Last Jedi. And you see Luke Skywalker tickling Rey's hand, like, "Oh, you feel the Force? You feel the Force?" And she's like, "Yeah, I feel the Force." And you're sitting there in a Jedi costume, if you're me, and you're going, "Oh,
well, we all knew Greg was a loser."
I feel very
when Star Wars was still
stupid.
cool, we were like, "Look at this guy."
I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I actually feel dumb for liking this movie because the movie doesn't even like the movie. The movie thinks it's silly. The movie's making fun of Jedis right now in front of me, whereas this movie takes itself seriously. It tells the jokes. That's fine. Like you have the scene where Sai is explaining what's happening in the dirt, and he's done this whole shrewd map on the ground, and he's like, okay, so these cans are the cars, and then one guy goes, and what's the big rock? And he looks at him, he's like,
That's a rock.
That's a rock. And he eats it out, and there's this half moment where they just stare at each other, and then they keep going. They're like, that's so great good, humor. Dude. That's like that could be something that actually happens within the world, and like it doesn't pull you out of the world.
And I feel like it's almost kind of like the Nicolas Cage effect, because if you look at the movies he's in, the ridiculous, silly movies, he's never a comedic character.
No,
like
he takes himself seriously.
He's goofy as heck, but his character is never, just telling jokes. Like I think about not Independence Day, National Treasure, which is a ridiculous movie and it's very funny, but it's not a comedy.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Dude, and that's why Nick Cage rules. That's why he rules. He puts his all.
Absolute king.
He never phones in any performance, no matter how bad the movie is signed. Yeah, right, exactly. Nick Cage rules. Okay,
I wish you had that clip queued up.
I probably a couple years ago fell into the Nick Cage is so whack. Like when I was younger, the Ghost Rider era, and I was like, dude, this dude is so whack.
He is.
The last couple years, I'm so on the Nick Cage train.
That's the thing. I love him.
He's both. I've embraced him for who he is, and I think it's awesome.
He really is. I think Nathaniel nailed it when you're like, he's kind of the definition of campy. It's just like he is totally serious within himself. He's like, I'm not going to shy away from being Nick Cage here and just saying, I mean, the whole movie, all of his lines might have just been goofy one-liners where he's like, well, you know what they say, cocks like a shotgun. If you ain't, whatever. Just insert line that doesn't.
I told you to put the bunny in the box.
What does he say when the guy's about to shoot him? He's like, I'll tell you right now, if you shoot that gun, you get a lot of angry convicts coming to you. Puts the silencer on it. Then he goes, well, ha fucking yaw for
the sound of
for the
silence.
sound of silence. And I'm like,
Great.
this is amazing.
Awesome, man.
All right, so Liam, give a quick synopsis for the people of what Con Air is, like for the,
of
for
course.
the people that don't know.
So Cameron Poe is the main character
Legend.
played by Nick Cage.
Hey,
One of the
I
greatest.
don't like him.
No, we love him. One of the greatest action characters of all time.
It's amazing.
And I will go on the record and say this is Nick Cage's finest moment of his acting career.
I
Pretty
think
darn good.
This is Nick
I
Cage.
think
it's
it's
up
my
there.
it's clearly my favorite Nick Cage movie.
It's yes, and I would say it's Nick Cage Apex Mountain for my money.
It's pretty darn good.
But Cameron Poe returns from the military, right, from service, and he has this beautiful wife that he comes back to, Hummingbird. He has this Hummingbird he comes back to, and he's just relishing the chance to be with her again. They're at a bar, and
She works at the bar.
She works at
That's
the
why
bar,
it's a bar.
and I'll try to make this efficient, but a couple like rabble rousers start prodding him, get on him.
Rapscallions.
At the end of the day, they meet him outside the bar. They try to fight him. Nick Cage, because he's a weapon, kills a guy. He murders a guy.
Well, the guy pulled a knife too. That's an important detail.
you're right.
that-
Like-
and they don't find the knife. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
The guy, he was justified in defending himself.
Yes.
Like, there's nothing wrong with Cameron Poe for what he did. But he did murder a guy, got sentenced, jail for 7 to 10 years, I think.
Yeah, so the judge
Mm-hmm.
is like, normally it would be manslaughter or even self-defense,
But
but,
you're
because
a
you're a
weapon.
weapon, which was like ridiculous to me. Like, well, because you're more capable of defending yourself.
Yeah.
Straight to jail. No trial, no nothing, just straight to jail.
Yeah. And then cut to, he spends 7 years in jail. The whole time he has a daughter who was born on the outside. The daughter says that he never wants his daughter to see him in jail for the first time. So he hasn't seen his daughter yet. She's getting old.
But they've
They
been
write
exchanging letters, yeah.
Yes. And then comes down to he's going to get released. This is his last day. He's getting released. He's gonna
July
finally
14th.
July 14th, his daughter's birthday. He's going to go to her birthday party and see her for the first time.
Just amazing.
The way to get home is through the jailbird. This plane where they have all of these just horrendous criminals go on this plane for transportation purposes. Now, when you have this powder keg in the sky with like horrible, like we're not talking like one-time homicide. We're talking like multiple offenders.
They're opening up a new
lifetime.
supermax. The
Yeah.
idea was they're opening up a new supermax in its location, and they're transferring. Essentially, it's like pulling all the worst of the worst from
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of prisons to this one plane, and then flying them to this new supermax.
So
and
kind
they
of like
happen
what,
to be dropping off.
not
Poe
Ecuador. Oh, there was a someone in the chat probably knows. El Salvador. So El Salvador had one of the highest murder rates per capita in the world. New guy just got elected president and just rounded up all the gang members and threw them all in their own prison. Like he made this giant fortress gang member prison, threw all the gang members in
What a
there.
beast.
And now they have one of the lowest murder per capita rates.
What a beast. It's
In
that
some other
simple.
country, and some
Was his name Cameron Poe?
Sounds like he's a hero.
But he was getting some complaints from other countries, not South American countries or Central American countries, like some other Western countries. Like, do you think you're being like too harsh on these murderous
for
criminals?
goodness
And he's
sake,
like,
dude.
well, okay, what you guys are doing might work for you, but for us, we went from having the highest murder rate to one of the lowest. I think we're doing the right thing
Yeah,
here.
I'm not going to listen to the Western.
It was something like
civilizations.
40,000 people they arrested. Like
Jeez.
dude, round them up.
round them all up. Exactly.
40,000.
Yeah,
Round 'em
just
up.
Round them all up.
So Cameron Poe gets caught up in this transportation, but he's going home. They hijack the plane. You guys can chime in with the granular details, but the prisoners are the actual bad villains on this plane, led by John Malkovich, Ving
Sigh.
Rhames as Diamond Dog,
Diamond Dog.
Billy Bedlam, some of these notorious, nefarious villains hijack the plane, and they have ulterior motives. They have another plan than transportation to this supermax, and they're going to escape. Yes.
Yes, and
Through
they're doing it
means of-
through
yeah.
because there was the son of a drug lord
Yep.
was turning state's witness or saying he was turning state's witness, and so he's getting released. But they made a deal with him to all escape together.
So the key element of this is Cameron Poe. Why would he? So they have a drop-off point, or they have like a middle ground that the jailbird,
Like
the plane that
Carson
they're
City.
on, is planning on landing there, dropping off some people, picking up some people. So the villains that have hijacked this plane need to do that route as well as to not draw suspicion.
Right.
When they do that, Cameron Poe is given the opportunity to get off the plane, which you'd think he would do because he has his wife and daughter waiting for him. However, he has a buddy on the plane, Bubba,
Who's diabetic.
who's diabetic and is going to die. And then there's also like guards that are like completely innocent and just getting taken advantage of by these villains.
Yeah.
And Cameron Poe becomes the bigger man and he's like, no, I'm going to save these people. So now he is on board. He kind of weasels his way into the plans, makes it seem like he's with Malkovich and all of these guys, but really he's just trying to save these people for the sacrifice of potentially dying and never seeing his daughter, which is the ultimate sacrifice. Like, that's crazy. That's still something that I bet you guys were like, oh man,
Yeah.
do you do it?
I mean, because you're watching the whole time, and the movie does a pretty good job to introduce these guys that seem scary, right? At the very least, you're like, okay, Malkovich and these other guys, as soon as they get out, they're killing guards. And you get the feel, like you feel like you're on this plane full of guys that are now excited that they're not going to prison for life, and they've just taken over. A lot of them are kind of acting like, oh, like they don't know, like they're just really excited that some of the cons had a plan, so then they're just kind of joining in. And then you get Cameron Poe, who you've done nothing but like so far in this movie. He's just the ideal guy, you know. They kind of hint at the fact that he used to have an anger problem, but he's like, I'm not that man anymore.
Yeah.
And he's a war hero. And so now he's in this plane with his buddy who's diabetic, and then there's a female guard who also gets locked up. And so he kind of feels responsible for the two of them. And then at that point where they make their one stop, where he initially was like, hey, just let me be one of the guys that gets off the plane. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, he's got a daughter and a family to go home to. It's like a big deal. You're like, okay, he made it. He made it there, and he didn't die. Like one of these crazy people didn't kill him. Again, a good movie puts you in the shoes of the main character, and you feel like that. When he lands, you feel like you're that character going, all right, just quickly, get off the plane. And he looks back, and he's like, well, they're not going to let my buddy off the plane because they needed like 3 white guys, and his buddy's black. And so he's like, well, you can't act like one of the guys that's getting off. So he's like, well, if you have to stay, you're going to die because you're diabetic and you don't have your medicine. And then he's like, okay, take somebody else. And so he like plants like a recording device in one of the guards that they're sending out to try to send a message. And he does another really neat kind of crafty things to draw attention while still acting like he's one of the cons. But yeah, he makes that. I mean, it's just a very like, that's what you want your main characters in movies to be doing. You want them to be making sacrificial decisions. It's not like he wasn't there like, I really just like, this is who I am, and like I need to live into this, and the world is stopping me from being this guy. But no, he's saying, I have all of these things, but there are people that need help, and I'm putting myself in harm's way to go and help them, but I need to still do that. I'm like, that's just such a good, you just don't get that a whole lot anymore. And so obviously he saves the day, and they land the plane. It's really dramatic. At the very
a lot
end,
of ridiculous things that happen along the way.
He gets to see his daughter, and he gives her the stuffed bunny that he had been saving for her. That's torn up and covered in dirt and ash at this point. And then the song rolls in, and he's like, hey, hummingbird. And then he's like, Casey, I got you this bunny. And she's like, noticeably, it's a great little moment. She's understandably, she's never seen her dad.
Yeah, she's a little scared.
She's a little scared. He looks like I look right now, which is a little scary.
Very scary.
The long hair,
Horrifying.
except for more Nicolas Cage, which is actually awesome.
And also, wounded and bleeding.
Way more
and
manic.
dirty.
Way more manic, like Nicolas Cage. And so he like kneels down. She like kind of goes behind her mom's leg, and it's like this really sweet moment. But then
it's
eventually,
realistic. Like that, dude, this whole movie is like absurd, but also like weirdly kind of realistic.
So that is one of my questions. And we can start off.
It's like weird to say that. About
we can start off with that because again, on its face, you're like, it's a very corny movie with how people are acting, like the things that they're saying, like Cameron Poe is 100% a corny individual.
Yeah.
He's just between the accents.
He's like Forrest Gump, but like a competent
there is a
fighter.
Forrest Gump aspect to it.
He's obviously corny to the nth degree. But as far as the things that happen in the movie, as far as convenience, maybe things that you'd label, oh, this is just kind of like silliness. I thought the plane obviously landing in the Vegas Strip and everybody happening to get off the street and like not really causing like a ton of damage or death seemed pretty corny and convenient. But what other elements? Because I think you're right, Liam. I think for being such a corny movie, it does a decent job at making you think, all right, obviously, like none of this could happen, but it seems like you're doing a decent job at making him believe that this could happen.
It's plausible.
Yeah, it makes you think it's
So-
possible. So what are
It's
some
outlandish, but
What,
it's
what are some of the more corny parts about this movie?
Every word that comes out of John Malkovich's mouth
Yes.
is just like the most absurd thing. He's just like it almost feels like I can't believe I'm about to say this. Remember Ghostbusters 2016, Kate McKinnon's character?
Oh, for goodness sake.
And she would say things, you'd be like, that's not connected to anything anyone else has said.
Oh, for goodness
It's
sake.
like that, but if it had actually been relevant to what was going on. He's just like talking, and you're like, words are coming out of your mouth, but you're not saying anything.
There is the one part where he's like, yeah, pretty clever trick, huh? And then he shoots the guy, and he's like, no, that's clever.
yeah, it didn't even make sense.
But
He's just such a you can't really and you know part of that that's the appeal of like he's a psychopath. Like you can't get a read on what he actually is other than trying to escape. Like what is he even doing? Like he's just all over the
he's just
place.
evil.
He's
He's
like
just an
I
evil
guess he's just
individual.
an evil dude, but also he's like I don't know, man. He's just weird.
yeah.
He's just weird.
And
like,
we love
when
him
so when
for
he's
it.
like, so Danny Trejo's like this famous rapist, right? And he's like, I hate rapists.
Johnny 23.
Yeah, Johnny 23. He's like, I hate rapists. Like, I don't like him.
Hey, I don't like him.
But then, like Dave Chappelle's character, was that the Billy?
Pinball.
He dies pretty early because he's gotten the landing gear because he was flirting with.
Oh, yeah.
Such a Dave Chappelle way to die. Yeah. So Dave Chappelle's character is one of them, like in the original plan, in the heist plan,
Right.
And then at some point, John Malkovich has to like distract a guard or do something. He's like, "Yeah, I don't want that uppity black guy." Blah 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 blah. Blah. And saying like some racist stuff, and Dave Chappelle after was like, "Yeah, you were just joking around about that stuff, right?" And John Malkovich was like, "No, I wasn't."
Yeah.
You're like, what?
No, not even
I'm
joking.
Sorry, I don't understand. I don't get his character. Like, I
Is
have no
the
idea what he actually
Is
is
the
like.
idea that
But
like
I feel like it's kind of the point. It's kind of like Joker keeps changing his in Dark Knight. He keeps changing his origin story.
yeah.
So you have no idea what he's about.
Well-
you just can't get a pin on him.
I think
I get a similar feeling from John Malkovich. Like I don't think he's intentionally misleading people.
Right.
But, like I just can't get a read on him. Other
There's
than
certain
he's
aspects
crazy.
about this movie I'm not even going to try to overthink.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to enjoy it. Is
I
a
think that- I think
prototypical
that's-
enjoy at face value movie
Oh,
for the
yeah.
most
Yeah,
part.
I think it's just so. I think what makes it so absurd but so grounded is that other than John Malkovich, like the way the characters react to things,
Yeah.
is very relatable and human. And you're like, oh yeah, that's what I want to happen. That's what I hope I would do in this situation. So like all the good guys
Right.
have great character arcs,
Yeah.
and even one of the bad guys.
Well, the law enforcement, like Cusack is a great character too, and like the way that the law enforcement like handled it, like again,
That
take
was
it
some
with
of the
a grain
best
salt, but, like
dialogue.
really great and like realistic dialogue back
Yeah.
and forths. Like
No, I mean their part outside of the plane when they're
I
trying to
figured out what the most absurd part is.
they're trying to figure out. Well, you can get to it after this point, but like when you have the DEA agent, which is the guy who
Colm.
yeah, okay, him talking to Cusack, and they're completely at odds with what they should do. But it's one of those scenes where Cusack is obviously supposed to be the competent one. Like the movie is painting him as one of the allies, as one of the ones who's thinking correctly. But it doesn't just do it by making the other guy useless. Like he's not just like, we should just blow up everybody in the world for no reason, and he's just like, oh, it's a bad guy. No, like he's telling Cusack what he thinks he should do, and it makes sense. You hear it,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah, I mean, he's got a point.
you could see both
well, and
sides.
even when the plane crashes in Vegas, he's like he kind of ribs him about it, and he's like, yeah, this was a better option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like they have this little moment at the end where they've been at odds the whole entire movie to the point where they're just like threatening each other, and at the end there was like this relief where they both kind of sit back, and he's like, sorry I trashed your car, or it got trashed, and he's like, gosh, I didn't like it anyways, whatever. And like you could tell they kind of like
They
it was,
make up.
It was water under the bridge by the end of it, which is really, which is just like the movie.
Yeah,
didn't-
typically a movie
Just makes that guy be an
end,
idiot.
Yeah, and that guy would be like, "Oh, I'll still get you for this," and then
Yes.
he'll slip on a banana peel and follow some doo doo or something ridiculous like that, right?
for this at corporate. That's how that would typically end. But like, there's an arc, and it's
Yes.
beautiful.
It like
Yeah, he comes around.
they
which
actually-
is great because I like Comini. So
they actually make the character useful, which is just like it's what you should do when you're writing. You shouldn't just be like, all right, and you're going to be a plot device, so your
Right.
only function is to be absolutely like none of the decisions you make are going to make any sense. You're going to be a complete loser, and we just need you there for like all the good characters to look better around. And it's like, well, no, he was clearly the asshole.
What is Disney writing male characters?
Yeah, he was clearly the asshole, but all the points he was making, you were sitting there, and like even the director who's kind of moderating their argument is like, he's got a point. Like he was pointing out the specifics of like, well, these people have forfeited a lot of their God-given rights because of the things that they've done. Like they're convicts.
Yeah,
like
dude.
we need to treat them that way.
Not just like regular convicts.
Yeah,
They're like
these are
really heinous.
Yes.
Like death row convicts.
And it's the argument about Poe where Cusack is like, hey, wait, look at his records. It doesn't seem like he's that bad of a guy. Like you or I could have accidentally killed somebody who was trying
any
to
one
fight
of us
us.
could be in that situation.
And then he's like, but he didn't, and he forfeits the right for me to think of him that way when he decided to kill somebody. And then you're like, okay, like I obviously see the movie. I know that Poe's a good guy, but from somebody who doesn't, and especially somebody that you want to be upholding the law, you're like, that's kind of a good mentality to have. Like we want them to be kind of stern and be like, hey, we can't treat these guys like puppy dogs. The second we take our eyes off them, they're taking over a plane and just killing everybody on board. And so you look at that, and he's got a point. But the execution of how to go about, because Cusack is a little wishy-washy on it's the institutions here that have caused them to be that way and all this stuff. And the other guy's just kind of like, no, you little girl. Like these guys are just dogs, and we need to be careful around them. But then, of course, their methods of saying, hey, we need to not put your DEA agent on the plane with a gun, that's really unsafe. And him saying, well, no, him having a gun makes him safe is another thing where you're like, I don't know. I mean, Cusack's got a point to not have a gun, to give them availability to have the gun. But I understand the point, too, in saying I'm not going to put my agent in there without defense of giving him a gun. And so he slips him a gun at the last minute. So really interesting, like
good
just
writing.
Yes,
like that is good writing.
It's just good character writing.
Yeah,
because
even though the dialogue is weird, the characters are well written.
Yes,
if that makes
yes,
sense.
I think that's
Yes.
that's a great way to summarize it.
And really one of the most interesting characters is what is his name? Green.
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi.
Oh, Garland
Which
Green.
Garland
I,
Green.
I realized what the most unbelievable part of that movie is.
There it is.
The idea that anyone could get killed. Not that Steve Buscemi could kill anyone, but the idea that anyone could be killed by Steve Buscemi. Because let's be honest, if he starts coming at you and you go, you're fine.
He
is creepy looking. though.
He is, sure, he's really pasty. He's got the bug eyes,
And he's got the
but he's
jagged
also
teeth.
really, he looks like he's 10 pounds soaking wet. Like you just go, boop, and he'd fall over.
There's been some notorious serial
That's
killers
true.
that have been.
That's
of
true. I'm just
slim
saying.
builds.
I'm pretty sure most people could defend themselves against Steve Buscemi.
But the cool thing
If
is,
he has a gun,
I
sure,
agree. No, it's a fair point. It is a fair
the
point.
thing is, isolated in this movie is a really interesting written character.
yeah.
In Steve Buscemi's character, the Garland Green.
You could argue like almost like very independent of
Yes,
everything else going on.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is that you could have made the entire movie and not included him.
and it wouldn't
was
be
weird.
that different.
And
Because it
nothing
almost
really would have
felt
changed.
like it could have been something like Poe, where he wasn't actually this crazy murderer. He was just framed for all of this, but he really was this
Well,
crazy
he
murderer.
admits it.
right.
And,
Yeah.
and the interesting part is that obviously
The one line.
so they put him on the plane in like this Hannibal Lecter looking stuff. They're not even touching him. He's got him all masked up. They're all holding him with rods, leading him to the plane, and they put him in his individual cell and lock him up. And so you're really just creeped out at the all the things that they say about him, and that all these guys are kind of like murderers and have had their problems in their own ways, but he's
like
a
the
serial
goat.
he's a
Yeah.
serial killer. Like
To them.
he does it because he enjoys it, and he explains it. He actually gets out, and it's the same Hannibal Lecter effect where he sits down and he's actually very well spoken and he's calm while everybody else is acting like a con. And even John Malkovich, who's acting very smart and who's executing a plan that was obviously very well thought through, is kind of even looks like a crazy person who just got smart. Whereas Steve Buscemi,
I mean, that's kind of what they imply. Again, they kind of imply that that's what he was.
Right,
He was just some
they do it
crazy dude, and then while he was in jail, he just had nothing to do but study, and he was just like,
Now he's a crazy,
now he's a crazy
brilliant.
smart
he
person.
captures that really well. I'm sorry, I think he captures
think
that
so.
No,
perfectly.
I
Where
agree.
he's
I'm
like,
not complaining about his performance at all. It's just bizarre. It's just weird in a good way.
But Buscemi's character, so Steve Buscemi gets let out and he sits down and he's just silent the whole time. And every time he opens his mouth, it's something extremely profound. Like he's either
Dude, yeah.
psychoanalyzing somebody, where he just says, "That guy right there, pain for him, like happiness for him is pain, or says something along those lines.
He's like all the stereotypes.
Yeah,
he wasn't hugged enough. He was hugged too much.
Yeah, he starts going through it, and Poe's like looking over, like, what are you saying, man? Like, it's like almost like you're saying things that make sense, but I don't even want to be sitting here listening to you because I know how insane you are. But he's speaking all these true things where he's like, for that guy, like, moments of happiness and peace are his pain.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting there analyzing everybody as he just kind of sits back, figuratively with his legs up. And then, Poe comes up after having killed Billy Bedlam because Billy took the bunny and he wouldn't put the bunny back in the box.
I told you to put the bunny. It's like Forrest Gump.
It really is.
You
It's very
could just
Forrest
do a
Gump.
Forrest Gump
It is very
impression.
Forrest Gumpy.
But he kills Billy Bedlam and he comes back up from whatever the under part of the plane. And of course, instantly Garland Green is just like, 2 go down, 1 come up. And he just kind of nods. And so, like, Poe could, and this is the second person. And, well, I mean, I guess he was at war. He could have killed more. But you can tell he's a little shaken by having to kill this guy because this guy figured him out and was going to expose him and also was just trying to kill him himself, was like, trying to attack him. So he's defending himself once again, kills a guy. He comes back. He's a little messed up from it. And Garland Green's just sitting there like, hey, it's okay. Like, some of us really like it. And he kind of goes into this detail of, like, for some people, it's by necessity. It's for these reasons. But the great ones, they all did it because they loved it. And then he just goes, he delivers the line where he's like, this one girl I killed, I wore her head as a hat for through like 3 states or something.
Dude,
and
that line is delivered with chilling.
Yeah, he delivers it just like with somebody just giving the evening news. Yeah, and I did this thing. So they introduce him obviously as this, like, Hannibal Lecter is the perfect comparison because he's well spoken, he's calm in the midst of all this chaos, and he's saying things that are true and that are interesting. So you're kind of like leaning your ear over to him. You want to hear what he says next. But then he gets off the plane at their first stop, and he walks up to this little girl who's just playing by herself in her backyard, and you're like, oh no, this movie. And again, this is where I think, and we can have a longer discussion about this later. This is where I think, if this is written as a modern movie, there's just some horrifying scene where he comes back with her chopped up, or it's just something awful where you're like, it just ruined. Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want it. Like, the girl is adorable. She's this really sweet thing playing with her dolls. She's playing with T-set, and he's sitting there, and you can feel the tension, right? And the screen is zooming into her face from his perspective, sitting across from her. Are you sick? And then she delivers the line where she's like, "Are you sick?" And he goes, "Yes." And so you get it, right? And then she goes, well, do you need some medicine? And then he goes, there's not any medicine for what I have. And you're also like, oh, that makes sense too. And then she goes, well, have you tried singing?
Beautiful.
And she's like, do you know he's got the whole world? And then they both start singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hand. And again, I think surface level, you think this is just a funny scene where there's a serial killer and a little girl singing He Got the Whole World in His Hand. And, oh, he's just a crazy person. But I think deeper, you can look to... really his rehabilitation came through singing about God, which is great. It's a great message to hide under. Not that this absolves him from anything, and that it's right that he should go free by any means whatsoever. The fact that I think you could have done away with the scene at the end where he's just a free man gambling.
Kind of funny,
but the fact, I think that did point to the idea that he's rehabilitated now.
Well, that was even further established with when the plane was going down. He started singing it by himself, and he kept the doll the whole time, right? Like, as a reminder of this little girl, like who he did not kill.
Yes,
who is like they see as the plane's going off, the little
right.
girl's there.
They leave it ambiguous, right? They cut away from the scene, and you're like, no,
it's almost not even ambiguous. You're like, oh, well, he definitely killed her.
He definitely killed her and probably ate her.
Yeah.
And then he's flying away, and he's got the doll in his hand, and you're like, oh no. And then you just see her waving, like, at the plane goodbye, and you're like, oh, he didn't. And then so your mind starts to
she's only missing an arm. Wow, he really held back. It's so sweet. He's on his way back. Guys.
Baby steps.
But it really becomes one of the most interesting parts of the whole movie is his involvement with the whole thing, because all these sinister, scary guys, he's the scariest, and yet he was smitten and, like, slain by singing about God. Like, I just think that's a cool little thing to intro. And like I said, it didn't even need to be in the movie.
No. The other great monologue he has is, it was the same scene where Nicolas Cage comes up and after he killed Billy Bedlam, where like he's trying to like almost say like, oh, we're kind of the same. I get it. I get what you're feeling. And Nicolas Cage is like, we're not the same. Like, I'm not anything like you. You're insane. And then he goes on this monologue where he's like, insane. He's like, a lot of people would say that working 50 hours in a concrete building is insane. Like he makes this really powerful.
He goes
comparison.
just a girl old enough to have to race to the bathroom to not ruin
to just
your
pray
dignity.
that you can get to the bathroom in time.
And he gives all these explanations, and then he's quoting books talking about how like that's measured by like Dostoevsky said something, I don't know, but he has a
he quotes I think it's Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment.
Okay, yeah, that's probably it. And
It's either Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, but I think it's Dostoevsky.
Well, actually, one of them was Cusack, and he said it was written from jail, and that's why he's like, oh, like it's like so and so wrote that. You know, that's the measure of your society is by look at their jails.
Who's incriminated?
Who's incriminated, and he wrote it while he was in prison. So.
Pretty sure it's Dostoevsky.
But I thought that you were gonna say what his other piece of dialogue is when he's sitting there and they're listening to Sweet Home Alabama, and he's like, "Define irony."
Oh, so good.
Define
Wow,
irony.
So good.
A whole group of people cheering and singing in a plane to a band that died in a plane crash. and then Poe just looks over at him, like just sitting there, like what is going through your
So
head? How
funny,
in this
dude.
moment right now are you leaning back, going, "That's ironic," and saying the things you're saying? And it's just amazing. It's like every word out of his mouth, you couldn't wait to hear.
I will also say on that note, the use of Sweet Home Alabama at the times that it was used, and the use of How Will I Live by LeAnn Rimes, hit every single time.
Oh, dude.
Like Sweet Home Alabama. That's why I didn't
Amazing.
mind the scene at the end where it shows that Garland Green's like gambling, is because it plays that song, and I'm like, let's go. I'm like, let's go. It's so good, dude. There's no better song than that in those moments. So the soundtrack, I mean, I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you guys? Because I was thinking, you guys were like, "Oh, this might be my favorite Nicolas Cage movie." Have you guys seen The Rock?
Yeah, we watched it. We had a series.
So we watched
kind
The
of.
Rock just a few days after we watched Con Air, because we were on a real big Nicolas Cage high.
'Cause I think that's. I don't know if it's as good as Con Air, because Con Air is just like the impact of the movie. It's just so good. But The Rock is really
The
good.
Rock is really good. I really enjoyed The Rock.
Yeah, I remember like John Boney saying he didn't like it. I think, but then we all agreed it was because we were comparing it to Con Air, and we had such a good experience.
The experience of Con Air is kind of
different.
unmatchable.
It's special, yeah.
Well, and it's just such a feel-good movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you had all the bad guys; they were really scary, but you had the good guy on the plane who made the brave decision to stay there, and he saved all the good people, and in dazzling fashion killed all the bad people, and then he made it home to see his daughter
and, he gets
gave
the
her the
girl
bear.
and his daughter.
And it's like, well, that's just great. I could watch that all the time. It's just so. Whereas, I mean, The Rock,
The Rock is good.
happy.
And it has there are a lot of parallels, but it opens with him like banging his girlfriend, and you're like, okay.
You know what's
And
funny?
It has
I
a
was
really weird
waiting for that
dialogue
scene.
exchange too.
I was waiting for that scene for a little bit watching Con Air, but I was like, wait a minute, that was The Rock.
Yeah, there was 3 movies.
He's like, I have to go to work. Or something like
Yeah.
that.
I was like, oh, that's The Rock.
There were
actually.
3 movies released all in a short period of time that all featured Nick Cage that are considered his big 3, which was, is it Face Off? Or
Yes.
Oh
What's
yeah,
Face Off?
Face Off with
Travolta.
John Travolta.
It's Face Off.
That one has some really weird implications where they're like banging each other's wives, and you're like,
Yeah,
"Ugh."
that one was wacky.
There's and then this one and The Rock were considered his big 3, but I didn't realize that Face Off and this movie came out like months apart.
He was on a
it was just,
heater.
imagine being a person
just
that,
going from
that
set to set
enjoyed
going,
that enjoyed going to the movies and just being like, oh, nice, going to see a couple movies that came out, and they're just both Nicolas Cage being
Heater.
unashamedly Nicolas Cage, like violently in your face, like, and you're just like, oh, my life is better now.
I remember The Rock. I remember The Rock. Nick Cage is truly absurd in The Rock. Like he has some lines to Connery where he's just hamming it up.
Chat saying that Dave Chappelle's character is great.
Yeah,
especially when he's when he's like hitting it off with the girl outside.
I read that he improvised a lot of his lines.
I'm not
A lot of that
surprised.
was
That's
just
why
like
that's
Dave
Dave
What
Chappelle.
was the
Yeah.
part where he was like, oh, like well, the plane's gonna take off in different directions or whatever he says. Like,
he's flirting. He's just directions.
yeah, like he's
It's
just
good.
It was classic Chappelle.
yeah. His character is, I mean, he's great.
It's hilarious that he's in this movie.
Yeah.
It is so funny.
Well, and we were mentioning that too, is that even like I guess you call them B-level characters, but like the characters that aren't your main characters still do a really good job and are still
secondary.
Yeah, secondary characters. But it's like it's Danny Trejo, it's Dave Chappelle, it's the guy who played Diamond Dog, and even Billy Bedlam.
Ving Rhames?
Like they were.
Who played Billy Bedlam?
We looked it up.
He's a guy. He plays Toombs in all the Riddick movies. He's like the bounty hunter that's going after Riddick.
You wouldn't know the name.
But he pretty much plays that character in every movie he plays, where he's like, "You should have dusted my dick the first time you saw me," or something. And you're like,
I can't see him being like a protagonist.
Yeah, never a good guy. He just doesn't have a good
The
guy.
movie opens, he's got a feather duster, and he's just like, man.
Yeah, just doing house chores.
Hey, I don't like
I don't like him.
I don't like him.
I have some. This seems like a good time. I have some casting what ifs.
Oh,
So I was doing some
here we
half-ass
go.
research, and a big chunk of it was casting. Like
Liam
there was a-
Maxwell's hot takes.
not really.
It's
No.
I always get that in the half-ass research mixed up.
Oh, this guy. So
Half-ass
for a lot of these
research.
main roles, there was multiple people in circulation for potentially playing them. Right?
That's right.
I want to just pick your guys' brains about some of these.
Okay.
Cameron Poe, other people that were in
Could have played
consideration.
him.
Not even like theoretically, like
Yeah, but
small. We're gonna pick one of these guys.
Yeah,
Keanu Reeves,
I can see that.
I could see that.
I feel like Keanu
It'd be
Reeves
a little
might,
more spacey.
might
Yeah.
be the only other person, and him doing a southern accent, I just don't
Yeah.
think that would have ever worked.
I think it could have worked with Keanu Reeves. I don't think it would have worked with these next two. Bruce Willis,
no.
It would have been another Die Hard.
too serious.
Yeah.
Would have been a
in
Die
my
Hard.
opinion.
He would have been too good. Like
Yeah.
he would have acted too well.
Yeah. Arnold.
No
That
way.
would have been absurd.
Arnold.
He would have had to have the long hair though.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Hummingbird.
I literally can't even picture him.
I'm coming home to you,
coming home
hummingbird.
Casey.
I told you to put the bunny back in the box.
She keeps sending me snowballs. I do not know what to do with him.
Again, think about how different the tone of these movies.
I
have
never
been.
leave a man behind.
I think Keanu Reeves could have done it in my opinion, but Bruce Willis and Arnold would have been totally different movies, and I probably
Put
would
the
not have
bunny in the
liked them.
box.
Yeah, it would have been like too serious. Like it would have been trying.
Well, it's because
to be
like
too serious.
it's because Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger, one, like, I don't know, you never really I can't picture them being in trouble. Like they're just the like, of course Bruce Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger are gonna beat up everybody in the plane.
They're like invincible.
And either of them could do a southern accent, and I think the goofy ass southern accent adds to the idea of like, oh, he's kind of just this simple guy and he's sweet, and he's Nick Cage. Like, I'm not sure if he can fight or not, if he's just gonna yell at people. Like, it's unclear. He could do anything. Like, he could die. It was all on the table, and just
So now these other ones, both of these I think could have worked. Larkin, so Cusack's character.
Sure.
Robert Downey Jr.
yeah. I think they're
Would have been interesting.
I guess, yeah. I think Cusack works because he's kind of
he's a little smug.
sympathetic. Like, no, he looks. Cusack was the guy who was on his side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks kind of he looks like the FBI agent that gets beat up and gets his lunch money taken, which worked for.
So you're saying
the
Downey
guy
would be
who's-
too confident?
Yeah.
almost.
Exactly.
see
I think Robert Downey Jr. would have worked in Colmini's place as the asshole guy.
Okay, that's fair.
Supposed to get
Okay, I think that's fair. Last one. This one's very funny. John Malkovich.
As
Can you think
Larkin?
of anybody else? No.
Oh,
that could
to
have
be the
played
bad
Cyrus
guy.
the Virus.
Yeah. Okay.
Vin Diesel.
No. Oh, I bet it was.
If you get
I bet
this,
it was Jim
I think-
Carrey. No.
No.
Vin Diesel,
No.
The Rock.
One more guess.
The
I think you guys will be like, okay, I could see that.
Robert De Niro.
The thing is, I read this and then I forgot it already. But I read
guess.
I forgot. I
You give up?
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that. I
see
could
it.
definitely
I
see it
could
working
see
with
it.
Willem
Yeah, I
Dafoe.
could see that working.
100%.
I think it would have been less weird with Willem Dafoe. I think he would have done a better job.
Sayonara.
But so are you saying that that's a
Yes.
bad thing? That it would have been less weird?
I mean, if we had Willem Dafoe, would we have?
Hey,
My
I
own
don't like
exploits
him.
are famous.
no,
in
we
the-
would not have.
What was it? In the
Often
penal,
lamented.
Often lamented in the penal
In
law.
penal lore.
Spider-Man.
No, I think that honestly, like those are pretty good. Like I think those might be some of the only people you could interchange.
Yeah. I was interested by it because I think
I could
like,
definitely
it was close.
see. Nick Cage, I think, is the one where if you change it, you lose a lot of
Yes,
what's
of
going
course,
on.
of
I think Larkin, you could probably change him out.
Yeah.
But again, I think you need someone who kind of gives you that, I guess a little bit of baby face.
Yeah,
Looks like he
Babyface cop.
maybe gets beat up around the office.
that's the
the
prototype.
one you're supposed to sympathize with.
Well-
the nice cop, the
Well,
good cop.
it's funny because The Rock has Nick Cage as more of a nerd, and he's more of a dork. But the protagonist, the bad guy, is
the general dude.
Yeah, the general. It's what's his name?
Oh, isn't it Ed Harris?
Ed Harris.
Yeah.
Who's just awesome in anything he plays. You're
Harris
just you're just like, oh, dude, you're right and I'm wrong. I don't even care what you're saying. And he's an excellent villain. And it's the opposite of Psy, where Psy is just saying things that just don't make it. He's just strolling up on top of the plane while everybody's working. He's just monologuing to himself, walking back and forth. And
Yeah, he's like on the plane for no reason.
He's
He's just
standing up
on
there.
it.
It's like,
You
well,
can't do
why are
anything
you up there? Like we're having a conversation. All of a sudden, he chimes in and he's standing on the plane and he's like, well, you know my own proclivities.
What are
to-
you guys talking about down there?
Yeah, just like. Whereas Ed Harris is very much like. I think he's just a general in every movie he plays. He's just got to be a war general. Like there's just nothing else. He just seems like the epitome of serious and focus.
Yeah.
And so he played a very different villain. But I don't know. I don't think this movie could be any better with anybody else playing these
Yeah,
characters.
that's the
like
thing.
they're
I
kind
think
of
the casting.
perfect.
I think the casting is one of the things that just makes it what it is.
Yeah, like I feel like they nailed it.
Yeah. I commented on this during the movie. It's like, not only are they doing a good job, like obviously they're doing a good job in their roles. When I say they, I mean like Buscemi, Cage,
Right.
Cusack, Ving Rhames. They are elite actors.
Yeah.
Malkovich. Like these are guys that like these are big names as
what
far
else
as
is
they're
John
popular.
Malkovich in? Because I honestly don't. I can't think
Being John Malkovich.
of, other than that. I knew he was in that.
I don't
one.
know.
I'm
Rounders?
John Malkovich.
Have you ever seen Rounders?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Rounders?
Pay this man.
Pay this man.
Pay this man his money.
Pay this man his money.
Not
never.
that I think
lost
that his Russian accent is great. It's about poker players.
No, it's just hilarious. Though.
Oh, that sounds like a very boring movie.
In the
to me.
line of
This
fire.
man checking. He plays in Red. He plays in Burn After Reading,
Nope.
which is a hilarious movie.
In the line of fire,
Nope.
he's the villain with Clint Eastwood. Burn After Reading.
Burn After Reading, yeah.
Well, you got some work to do, brother.
Apparently, I
He
haven't watched
plays-
it.
really
Apparently,
good
I've just
movies.
never seen John Malkovich in any other
He
movie.
plays the French Prince guy in Johnny English with Mr. Bean.
Man, I did watch that movie a long
Dude,
long
there are
time
some
ago.
amazing moments in that movie. Like, there's the point where
Rowan
John
Atkinson is just brilliant.
John Malkovich walks up to Mr. Bean with a drink in his hand, and he's just like French ambassador guy, and Johnny just like takes the drink from him. He's like, "Oh, thank you," and then the girl he's with is like, "Clearly, you haven't met like the ambassador of France or whatever the case is." He's like, "Oh, heavens, no." He's like, I think I'd rather have my bottom impaled upon a cactus than exchange words with that Frenchman." And he's just standing right next to him, and he's just like bashing France while this guy's
Take
standing
that,
there.
France.
Oh, dude, he played Lenny in Of Mice and Men. Remember?
Nope.
Oh wow, yeah,
right?
He's the mental
Yeah.
case that kills the mouse. Or
Yeah.
whatever. Sad.
Nothing. None of those.
I haven't watched that
no,
either.
no, even wow.
But he definitely is a household name. Like
Was
you
he in
know
any of the Harry
who-
Potter movies?
No, that's why you don't know him.
Has he been in Marvel
Why?
yet?
Why is
He has not been in Marvel yet. Yeah.
Although even now, I've watched all the Marvel movies.
he you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of
Willem Dafoe.
No, no. I mean, kind of maybe, but he reminds me of oh gosh, who's the guy that played King Louis in the new
that's Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken, where he's just kind of like he's just iconic for the way
see
he
that.
talks.
I can see that.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
And it's almost like he's been not like he's been ruined, but it's almost like he can't be in a role without
He's
just
kind of
being
been-
himself.
yeah.
He's like a caricature.
Like yeah,
of
if
John
Christopher
Malkovich.
Walken is in a movie, you're like, oh, it's Christopher Walken. You're not, he's not the character that he's playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Malkovich is the same way, where he's always just going to be, what are you doing? Hey,
I don't
like
like
him. Like he's just going to be John Malkovich, and like that's he falls into that same vein. Like I don't know if Defoe is that much because Defoe can play some really impressive roles.
Oh,
And he can be
Defoe's
very
awesome.
serious. He can be funny, and then he can also just be his really manic Willem Dafoe self. But the other two, it's like Watkin and Malkovich. It's like they could never be in a movie and just be like a minor character that doesn't do much. And you're
Yeah.
like Christopher Walken couldn't come down and just be the main character's dad and it not be like, oh, there's a reason why.
Now,
we
is
have
there
him.
some correlation between those statements, which I agree with, and the ability to impersonate an actor.
What do you
Walken
mean?
and Malkovich are two of the most easily impersonatable actors.
Because
do they become
so,
caricatures,
they're so memorable,
right. And like Arnold,
like
too.
they're So I mean, those are people where their presence is so obvious that they become very impersonal, easily impersonal characters, and because of that, the impersonation of that character gets spread. So even people who haven't watched like an Arnold movie know that Mr. Arnold talks like this.
Yeah.
Hasta la vista, baby. Like, so.
But it's interesting because, like, if you were to also think about like the greatest actors of our time, Leo, Brad Pitt, I don't like it's
Clooney.
not Clooney. Yeah, I guess so. It's not easy to like impersonate these people.
It's because I think part of the problem, I guess you'd say, I mean, not that it's a big problem, but like that Malkovich and Watkin have is that they bring those mannerisms into every character, and whether they're doing it on purpose or not, they're using those mannerisms in every single role they play, which is what makes it easy to impersonate because they're always saying they always have that tone.
Like typecasting
Malkovich
almost.
is always talking like this in whatever movie he plays, and Christopher Walken is always talking.
Hey, I'm the
like,
cock of the walk.
Hey, I'm Christopher
I'm the
Walken
king
wearing
of the
gold-plated
jungle,
diapers.
And
the
like-
jungle VIP.
and it's like no matter what, it's not like he could have just played this other role and been like, oh wow, he really got into that. No, like, and to be honest, it's kind of a notch against their acting prowl on a wide scale. But when they do play a role where that's needed, they hit it out of the
It's
park.
so fun.
Because
Yeah,
you're like,
it's so
you're
much
perfect.
fun.
Hey, we need Cyrus the Virus to be here. What does he need to be? He needs to just be completely bizarre. He's a lunatic who kills a bunch of people. According to his rap sheet, he went into jail at 14 for having done all those things, which doesn't make any sense.
then got 3 PhDs.
And then became a genius, and so that's how we need him to be. Okay, great.
Deal.
Let's just
Say no
yeah,
more.
I know exactly who to get.
That's the thing about. So you have the method actors like your Heath Ledgers and I'm trying to think of the other one. The guy who's in
Christian Bale?
Daniel
Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yes, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
Who disappear into their role
Yeah.
and then they just become that character.
Uh-huh,
And so in every movie,
Totally.
it's not that actor. It's
a new
just
character.
that character.
Totally. Which is the hallmarks of a
truly
elite
phenomenal
actor. Yeah.
And then you have that's like the one extreme, and then you have the people who
the majority of actors
all
all exist in the middle.
are somewhere on that spectrum of becoming the role, and then on the other end are the people who it's just them.
Right.
Yeah.
And for those people, when they're cast in the role that fits their mannerisms super
great.
well, it's like you can't see anyone else doing that role.
I mean, Nick Cage is. I mean, we're talking about with all these other people. Like Nick Cage is 100% that. Where it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he can't play a mild mannered, just like a casual. Hey, I'm just somebody's dad. He's either ironically trying to be normal, and you're like, oh look, it's Nick Cage trying to be normal. We know he's not. Or it's Nick Cage completely uncaged, if you will, just being
Nick uncaged.
even this character. You think
Nicholas Freed, if you will.
You think like, hey, you're gonna have a southern accent, you're gonna have long hair, you're gonna be this like buff jailbird guy. So it's gonna be nothing like your other movies. We watch it, he's exactly like Nick Cage. Somehow you watch it, you're like, it's kind of
Somehow,
just
Nicolas Cage
it's
returned.
it's just Nick Cage the whole movie. like his facial is just kind of like. Yeah, I think I did. Like whatever, just the way his face looks, you're like, oh, you're Nick Cage, and you're just doing Nick Cage things.
I'll walk back my statement of the great actors. The summarization is the perfect casting.
There you go.
Yeah,
it's great casting.
I think that's the better. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Just-
The casting,
agree.
the casting is
Perfect.
impeccable. Everyone's in the perfect role for them.
Yeah, because even Buscemi's I think Buscemi's a great actor, but
Yeah.
he's kind of that guy, and he doesn't have a
His
wide
problem
range.
is not his acting range.
It's
His
his-
problem
it's his
is
look.
the way he looks.
Yeah.
He's so distinctive.
unique
it's
guy.
it's really hard. He looks so unique. It's really hard to put him in for him to disappear into roles.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great in like Reservoir Dogs. You guys ever seen that?
Uh-huh.
He plays a good kind of just like mob guy who complains all the time. Like he fit that role pretty well. But you brought up a really cool point, Liam, that there's a fan theory that he is the same character in this movie as he is in The Big Lebowski. That is really interesting. When you said that, I couldn't stop thinking about it because it just totally everybody in that movie is so just kind of bizarre and in their own world, and just all these older people that are friends, but they, like none of them are married or really have much of a family around that we can see. So just kind of these three guys that bowl together, and he's very he's very quiet, and everybody kind of pushes him around a little bit, and it seems like somebody who is re-entering the world after being just a total waste of space and killing people. Like, I'm gonna re-enter now as a clean human being, and just kind of just meandering around and bowling.
That's just like your opinion, man.
And the other theory, the addition to that theory is that his character in Billy Madison was the first. So when Billy Madison, Con Air, Big Lebowski.
I love that. I think that those make some of the funnest things to like watch movies. Like, have you guys seen Snowpiercer?
I have, really good movie.
So have you seen the theory?
Isn't the theory that's like tied to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
That's the sequel to Willy Wonka.
I've never seen that.
It's incredible. Like, go and watch it, and by the end you'll be like, oh my gosh.
It doesn't seem like it could possibly correlate.
No, it's so good. It's so like even to the down to like the fact that there's like W written all over like the train because it's Wilfred is the main, and it's like, well, Wilfred Wonka he's got this huge like wouldn't it make sense that this
that did explain all the Oompa Loompas in Snowpiercer. I was
there is this key point where they're talking about the engineering, and they're like, hey, we won't be able to get into the engineering room in the final level or the final stage of the train because you have to be really small to get in there, and it's not going to work so we have to find a way to blow it up or whatever. And then there's this weird hint at that, and then there's just the idea that he has this cause for the spectacular and over the top, and yet this billionaire candy maker guy finds out the world's ending, and what do you think he would do? He builds this gigantic train that has all of these extravagant different levels to it, and it's all based off of your merit, right? Like, which is this whole system in Willy Wonka, which is like, okay, if you do this, that's it, you lose. Good days, sir.
You get nothing.
Good
you
days,
lose.
Sir.
And like, he has so many tie-ins when you watch this video. It's like a 10-minute video. It makes it so cool. Like, I've just accepted it in my mind that
how many movies could you do that with if you really just dove in as hard?
Honestly, if you take tenuous connections, you can do it with just about anything.
Yeah. Well, the really easy one is that Mark Wahlberg just plays himself in every movie, and he's actually Mark
actually exists as Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, like
in every universe.
In that he's only it took me a really long time, but I finally found a movie.
It's like The One, but it's Mark Wahlberg.
Well, I found a movie for the longest time. I thought that he never died on screen, and I was right. And it took me several months to dig up a movie because I was just looking for it. There was no consensus. Just like, yes, he dies in this movie, and it was written online because I was looking up that exact thing. Like, what does he die?
Ted 2.
And I had to look. No.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
But there was this
Mark
super
Wahlberg
old movie
is the one.
before I think during his singing career when he was a rapper.
Marky Mark and the Funky
Bunch.
And he made some movie where there's like a minor character and he happened to die. But none of his stuff since he's been like Mark Wahlberg, and all of the movies that he makes are like life-threatening movies.
Yes.
Lone Survivor. Guess who's the lone survivor? Mark Wahlberg.
The Departed. Everyone dies.
Everybody dies.
Except Mark
At the end,
Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg kills everybody. All of the Transformer movies, Mark Wahlberg survives. Shooter, Mark Wahlberg shoots everybody. Doesn't get shot himself. Like in every,
He did do that in that movie, huh?
We
I do remember that happening.
4 brothers. One of the brothers dies. Guess what? It's not Mark Wahlberg. We have just all these movies where he's just this badass gangster, whatever, and he just never dies. He's just always Mark Wahlberg, and the whole you're just like, well, you're just acting like Mark Wahlberg.
That's unreal.
Invincible, literally invincible in the movie and in real life.
Invincible
apparently.
plays in the NFL, doesn't die.
So unrealistic.
Crazy.
The movie's titled Invincible actually because his character is invincible in other movies, and that just happens to be him having some fun time on his off time. But anyways, back to this movie. So let's get nitpicky. What are some elements of this movie that you didn't like? Not necessarily like, there's obviously points that could be better, right? Like there's virtually no CGI the whole time, and then all of a sudden the CGI when they're landing in Vegas is like, ooh, that looks terrible. Like there's a couple clips where the plane looks like it's the size of a car and it's just rolling in. But I'm talking about like things that you actually just didn't like, if any. I mean, I know we're all pretty.
So the
we
thing
all
about
like
movies
movie
like this is, I feel like I get more nitpicky when a movie is either like really atrociously bad, and I want to say like what went wrong. I just want to like put it on the operating table. We're gonna dissect this thing and see what went wrong, like down to the festering bone marrow. Like just awful.
Yeah.
Or if something's really good, and I say, okay,
it made the bad things stand out more.
Made the bad things stand out more. But when it's a movie that's not meant to be taken super seriously,
Right.
where you're just like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to enjoy this ridiculous movie, and then it just happens to have these really nice emotional moments. Like, it would have been a good movie without those. Like, it would have been fun.
Yeah.
But that kind of ties it together. And I cannot point to anything where I was like, well, they shouldn't have done that.
Right.
I got one.
Okay.
I didn't really get the cross-dressing character.
Oh, okay, yeah. He didn't do anything.
It's just what
he was so
there wasn't
useless.
a
I didn't understand what he was there for. You're right.
There was zero purpose.
You know what? I had forgotten about that character because he's so useless in the entire movie.
It led to one of the greatest moments.
It led zero impact.
Led to one of the greatest moments when he's taking over the plane and he goes. He slaps her and she goes,
"Oh, it's so good."
Oh man,
that was a very strange character.
It is strange, and also like he's used a lot. Like not a lot, but like
he
there's
shows
many
up a lot.
scene. Yeah, like he's
but he
at
doesn't
the end.
do anything.
Remember at the end when he like is the only person like that
he comes out of the plane and he's like men in uniforms.
Yes.
I'm like is that.
I was like, why him?
Did they even say what he was in jail for?
No.
Like
So,
he's just there.
Here's my take on that. And we'll be careful with how we talk about this. But
We're already canceled.
I think that during what this 1997,
I know you're gonna say.
like I think it was much more like that
Yes,
was just
it was
humorous in
it was a
itself.
humor point.
Where like we look at that now and we're like, oh, okay, transgender character. What are we gonna do here? Why did that character exist? Whereas then it was like, oh, look, it's a guy dressing like a girl. This is going to be hilarious.
Anyway.
And now it's like
the Monty Python gambit.
now it's like you clearly can't. Like we're waiting to see what they do with the character. When it's like, well, that
That
is
was
the
just a comic
character's
relief
use.
character.
The character's use is to be a character who's a guy dressing like a girl. One, you might find that in prison, as there are just different roles for people in prison, I guess. And two, most every scene that he was in, it was just doing something silly, right? It's him running out into these buildings, looking for something, and then he finds a dress. And it's like, oh, that's what he was looking for. It's clearly a humor point. Him getting slapped, in the face is a humor point. Him dancing around, I guess, and those
For
were
way
really
too long.
Like those are really just the only points that I really remember.
Could have removed.
Yeah, you could have taken it out. Although
You would have missed the slap, but honestly,
getting slapped by that was
if you had to
got a
give up
big
the
laugh
slap,
out
which
of
was
me.
very
It
funny, but you got rid of if you got rid of the character altogether, you cut out a lot of the moments that were just completely forgettable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm kind of with Nathanael. It was hard for me to really pick out things that I didn't like about the movie. I think that we were watching with John Boney, a friend of ours. He did make a good point about just the distance and proximity of everything. Like where were they flying and driving to where that all made sense? To be like, hey, we're flying all these like insane prisoners. Oh, and you two guys that are virtually free men. One of them is going to be a free man in a matter of hours, and you just hop on that plane too. Okay, well maybe if they're all going to the same location and it's all like across the world, well then great. This is like, and we're gonna stop somewhere. Some are gonna get off, some are getting on. Then you're gonna go here, and you could actually just drive there if you're John Cusack. And it's like, wait, where? Like I couldn't even keep track of where everybody was going. I'm like, so they.
Yeah, it was a little messy geographically.
Like in that part to me, and maybe it was only because I started to think about it because John mentioned it. John's like, wait, he can drive there? And then he drives there and he beats them. And he's like, they were flying, and he mentions it at 215 miles an hour or something. And he's like,
going in a straight line.
It's like, well, how did John Cusack get to the place that they were? Like it was just, and so I wasn't really thinking about it. But once he did point it out, it was a little at times. I was like, wait, where are they going? How is that? How did he drive there? Wait, he's there now. Wasn't he over here? How is he talking to?
I think was John Cusack could teleport in that movie. I don't know if you noticed that.
So I think John
was a
Cusack
jumper.
was waiting where they were eventually going to land with Poe, with the family, with the girl and Hummingbird. And then he drives to their little rendezvous spot out in the desert. He drives to beat them there because they're flying from a different location. I think the movie just makes it feel like John Cusack was following them around. Who makes it seem like he was there when they took off, and then he was there at the first place that they landed, when in reality he's just kind of calling it in because he was at Si's prison cell for a little while.
Right.
So that makes like
geographically it was a little hard to get a beat on what was going on.
Maybe a little bit more effort.
If one of you more geographically minded people wants to draw up pull up the map and give us the by all accounts it doesn't make sense. How did we get here, Fescom?
The other interesting note is at the end, and I don't know if this ties into that, is at the end the female guard says to Poe is like, next time take the bus. And I was like, is she implying that he had the option?
No. Well, yeah,
It's definitely
yeah.
not his choice to take the
But,
plane
yeah.
with all the baddies.
It was just a funny. It was funny
funny-
in the
funny moment.
context that like we were talking about that geographic thing the whole movie.
So why does a movie like this work so well, and why is it so different than movies we see nowadays? Like what makes a movie like this good in light of like movies that are made now?
I think part of it is it's just naturally got heart. Like you want Poe to succeed,
Right.
because you're like, he's fighting for his family. He's he was unjustly in prison, but instead of being like, no, the system stinks and that, which he could have,
Right.
and he could have been angry, he was just like, I just want to go see my girl, right? The fact that he's not angry and bitter, even though he would have been arguably justified in that,
Right.
and he's not. He's just like, I'm just happy I get to go home.
Yeah.
And then that he's willing to give that up to save Bubba, or whatever his name was. Was his name
It's
actually
definitely
Bubba?
I have
not
no
Bubba.
idea what
It's
his name is.
You're just being
So
racist.
we're saying it's Bubba
No, it's
because
his name
it's
in Forrest
the
Gump.
character.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
a character that It's the actor that plays.
Is it
Bubba
actually the
in-
actor that
yeah.
plays Bubba?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god!
100%. We weren't just calling
You
a
thought we were
random
just
actor.
being
I thought you were just saying
racist?
that. No, I thought you were just saying that because Nicolas Cage had the Forrest Gump accent.
No.
Fair.
So there's even bigger connection there.
Yeah.
It's the actual actor that played Bubba in
Oh, yeah.
Forrest Gump is his friend in the cell, which I guess he just excels at playing
Yeah.
friends of main characters.
Yeah.
But
That could sound like.
But
Forrest
anyways,
Gump.
it's someone you want to root for.
Yeah.
Someone he's noble and not infallible, and trying his hardest to do the right thing,
right.
in spite of the odds. And and also it's a very fun movie. Again, it's a fun and funny movie, but it's not a comedy. It's not looking at the camera going, wink, wink, isn't John Malkovich crazy? Because he is. It's just, it's goofy and absurd, but not in a way that rubs you the wrong way, which I feel like a lot of nowadays is, it's saying that people trying too hard is kind of a dumb thing to do. But saying like, oh, how can we make the audience laugh? Whereas this was just like, hey, this is what these characters are like, and let's
Right.
just put them in these situations, and then comedy just it's much more organic. It's very organic
Yes,
comedy.
Yeah. Had incredible self-awareness, I think.
Yeah.
Dialogue amazing, casting
Yeah, casting was phenomenal.
picture perfect.
Yeah, I think that is a big. Just to go back to the question of how this is so much different than movies that are made nowadays and why it's so good and refreshing to watch, is a lot of that. Like, look, the main character is just good, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Like, he's a guy we want to root for, like you were saying. That part is just, it doesn't need to be. We don't need to see the dark past of the fact that he used to have a temper. Is kind of, they hint to that where she's like, hey, the man I used to know might have gone and fought that guy, and he's like, well, I left that guy, like that guy's left behind us or whatever at the very beginning when he's dancing with his wife, and so it kind of hints at the fact that he's grown as a person. But we don't need to sit there and be like, okay, let's watch him cheat on his wife and then have to go back and be like, hey, this happened, I saved
took the
people
bun out of the
but-
box.
or have to deal with he's running into danger. He wasn't thinking about his daughter. Now his daughter could not have a father, and that's just selfish thinking. Instead of being like, no, we've established him as a guy that you root for. He's just a good guy. We don't have to go super deep into that. The action's going to start pretty much right away, and he's going to have the option to either save people or go save himself and be safe. And he chooses to save people and put himself in danger. And now you're just going to see how he goes about doing that. And then it's great. He reunites with his daughter at the end. It's just got a happy.
It's a good ending.
Yeah, it's a happy movie. And I feel like that's such a hard. I think movies are so much more about, oh, look at me and how I've been mistreated.
And then also ending with like, and everything stayed terrible, like The International. You ever see The International with Clive Owen? Don't.
Not going to.
Don't.
I mean, but I think another thing is like, what would you say? Okay, so ending conclusions on the movie. What would you say that this movie is like promoting? Like, what is the main message of this movie that it's saying? Hey, this is
Put the bunny back
selfless-
in the box.
Selflessness.
selflessness.
Yes.
Yeah,
He put others before himself the entire duration of the movie.
like bravery,
Bravery,
Another theme.
masculinity.
masculinity.
Look at this. This man's broad. This man
Penal
is a
lore.
broad, dude.
Penal lore.
Penal
Can we
lore.
look
Penal.
up what penal lore?
Penal, as in
means?
penal law, he's saying like in law enforcement.
Penitentiary. Like it's
Yeah,
probably gotta
penal,
be a
like
tie in there.
penitentiary. He's saying that he's famous. He's saying for that. He's saying He's saying he's famous for his. He was saying in a very, very roundabout way. I'm famous for the bad things I did.
Penal, relating to, used for, or prescribing the punishment of offenders under the legal system.
Okay, so
That's why they call it a penal code.
Penal lore. Those words have never. I've never
sounds
heard
really
that phrase.
dirty when you say it like
when
that.
you hear John Malkovich say it, you just assume it's about penis or something.
Yeah, because he was saying
No,
some
he
wacky
hates rapists.
stuff.
Remember,
He's a racist.
he hates rapists.
Oh, he hates rapists.
Johnny would have been Johnny 600
If they knew.
So I don't know if you guys know this, but Danny Trejo was actually in jail for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So he did actually do time, and he made it a rule that in his contract, if he plays a bad guy, that bad guy has to either die or suffer severe punishment for being a criminal.
What a beast.
Because he was like, I don't want kids to see me on TV and think, oh, it's cool to be a criminal. So like anytime you see him playing a bad guy, he always dies.
A beast, dude. How did he die in this movie? I forget.
They chained him up,
chained
and,
him up
and
and
then
the plane
after
crashed.
the crash, they were like,
that's right,
they
his
walked
arm
over
was
to him,
hanging.
and like he's hanging up, like from the restraints or whatever, and then they walk up to him, they're like, yeah, this guy's dead, and then they take his body away, and the arms are still hanging there.
Really good. Really good.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's part of Danny Trejo's contract. That like if
That's-
he plays a
that
villain,
is
if
really
he plays a
cool.
villain or a criminal, then he always gets his
Because
comeuppance.
he is a mean looking dude.
Yeah.
It's kind of top notch from Danny Trejo,
Yeah,
though.
he's a
Like,
classy
puts,
guy.
He's
puts
class
another
act.
element
Yeah,
to that.
he's a
Like,
classy
I
guy.
really like
He's a
that.
class act.
He was
Yeah.
in Spy Kids.
I know.
Yeah, he was.
Machete.
He's also much. Those movies, I didn't watch the second one. That first movie was absurd. What a silly movie.
Well, you see,
it was intentionally though.
So for the viewing audience, Evil Juan will be a future guest and have his own show where he picks a movie, and he has talked about surfing ninjas. And that just makes me think of Spy Kids. I haven't seen this. I mean, I might have seen this when I was a kid.
We watched the trailer, and it gave me Spy Kids vibes.
Yeah,
for sure.
I have a feeling it's going to be Spy Kids-esque. And
Except instead of Danny Trejo, it's Rob Schneider.
maybe.
so infinitely less badass. Oh man,
Machete don't text.
Machete. But yeah, so I mean,
There's a moment in that movie where he's fighting a bunch of guys on like the second story of a building, and of course he's got his machete, and he's just like hacking dudes up. He hacks some dude's stomach open, grabs his intestines, and uses it to jump and rappel into the next floor.
Amazing.
just
That
to
movie
be
is
clear,
just absurd.
this
That's
is not
Grindhouse.
This is not Spy
Con
Kids.
Air.
Not Spy Kids.
not
This
Spy
is
Kids.
Machete,
This is a
which is just a ludicrous
a
movie.
background story on the character in
Of
Spy
Danny Trejo,
Kids.
yeah. Yeah, that's
We're
that's what he came.
multiple,
That's
who
that's-
is a
yeah.
actor in Con Air.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're 3 layers deep.
that's how they made that movie. They made the movie Machete because in Spy Kids he's Uncle Machete, and he's like, oh, now we got to make this movie about his backstory, but we're just gonna make it rated R. And it's like, wait,
It's not
hold on
related
a
at all.
second. Yeah, it is.
It-
Yeah, Machete is about.
I don't think. I think it's coincidental.
No, okay. I'm
There's
looking
almost
it up
no
right
way
now.
that's related.
It's not related to Spy Kids. It's not Rico Rodriguez, the guy who does all the Grindhouse movies.
You're talking about. Okay, hold on. I'm looking it up.
Machete was a trailer. And this is the guy that I think it's Rico Rodriguez. It's just a director who does this all. He does Grindhouse style movies, including Grindhouse. And he does this all the time. Where he'll have trailers like within the movie, and then he'll turn those trailers into real movies. And Machete was one of them.
Okay.
I don't think they're related. I think it's
Robert-
completely Robert Rodriguez, maybe.
Machete makes a cameo appearance in Spy Kids all the time in the world, where he is seen tripping in a laboratory when time is freezing by Danger. Danny Trejo
Forget
makes an
that.
appearance.
So
I
Robert Rodriguez is a producer
Rodriguez.
for Machete and Spy Kids too.
Oh, so maybe there is a connection there. That's pretty funny.
And I'm assuming Spy Kids is the original, as well as Spy Kids Armageddon.
Whoa, hold on. There was an Armageddon. I have to watch that one.
It
I
came
remember
out
1
this
and 2.
year,
No
2023.
way.
I remember watching 1 and 2. Oh, it's not out yet.
2023.
Oh, it came out last year.
No, it came out last year.
Well, who are the Spy Kids now? Because the
Dude,
original
actually-
Spy Kids
it
must be like 40 now.
It actually got really good reviews.
Hell, I'll watch it.
Totally kidding.
You wanna
It
do
got
the,
horrendous reviews?
I'm not surprised. Do you want to do the Spy Kids marathon?
It got a.
There's like 4 of them.
I think I'd rather have my bottom impaled upon a cactus, like Mr. Bean said.
I think I'd rather have my.
You can arrange that.
I'd rather be electrocuted.
I'm sure
and have
Jakob
my
would be
head
able
squished.
to supply us some cacti.
I'd rather be electrocuted and have my head squished by an industrial Las Vegas.
Be smashed into a sky bridge,
Yeah.
fall onto electrical wires, and then have my head smashed in.
That's what I would rather do.
Hypothetically, we
Than
didn't
watch
see him die.
Surf Ninjas. That
Surf
stupid
Ninjas I can
movie is.
handle. Spy Kids.
Well, speaking of, what are we doing next time?
Okay, so
I don't know what
2
the
weeks
plan
from
is.
today,
2 weeks from
Mr.
today.
Liam is
Liam.
bringing on a guest.
Okay.
2 weeks from today would be
Look at the calendar. Sometime in March.
The 14th.
the 14th.
Yes, March 14th.
Okay, so it's not the Ides of March, so we don't have to stab your guest in the back. It's good. Smart.
Boy, was that close.
Smart. Really
we might
dodged
need to
the bullet
talk about
there.
a scheduling change. My brother's going to be in town for his bachelor party.
Perfect. Your brother can be on. Just ask him what
bring on.
movie.
That's the bachelor party.
All right, it might be we'll do the 14th tentatively.
Hey,
I have to
I don't
prepare for
like
that
him.
weekend.
We'll figure something out. So what?
Hey, this back-to-back screwed up the schedule. That's all I'm saying.
The back-to-back saved the schedule. We all talked about it the other week where we're like, oh, that works out because you couldn't
We'll figure
do,
it
like,
out.
The 7th.
I got the pick, though. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
Well,
that
the funny thing
matters.
is, I can do it the 7th now because it got moved.
Okay, so we got.
So can I.
Okay, so okay. The reason that we moved moved.
Well, who
the
are you going to bring
weeks-
on, and what movie are we going to watch?
I don't know. Well, now I'm crunched for time.
The problem is that
But what had you planned before everything went to hell?
the problem is the 22nd. I won't be here, so I'm fine with doing the 7th. But then we'd have to do Then we'd have to do 2 weeks off.
No. Let's do 2 weeks. Oh, you know what? If Liam's not available, we can do our ranking every movie episode.
Ooh,
¿Por qué? ¿Por qué is that?
Every movie that we've watched.
it's like a
And,
million
doing
movies.
yeah, it's like a million movies. Doing like the S tier, A
Absurd.
tier.
Why don't you guys do that?
Yeah,
I'm
that'd be
I'm gonna
fun.
Be out.
That'd be fun.
It means you're going to be gone for 4 weeks, a month without Liam.
The viewers
We'll
will be
survive.
okay. So the 28th.
All right, so the 28th would be our next show.
you guys get to see
and
some
that
inside
would-
baseball here.
That would be your pick, Liam,
yeah.
on the 28th.
I got my guy.
Okay, and then
Alright.
the 11th is when Marco's in town. So it should be Nathaniel's pick, but we can I'll just use
We'll
my
figure
pick,
something
and then
out.
we
The
can,
movie, I actually already know the movie. The Accountant is the movie.
Accountant.
Yes.
Is this Maddie Maxwell?
Nope. It's my friend Marshall.
Marshall Mathers.
You'll have to wait and see if it's indeed Marshall Mathers.
Spaghetti. 8 Mile.
Mom spaghetti. Mom
The spaghetti on his
Mom
spaghetti already. Mom spaghetti. He's nervous, but on the server, he calls spaghetti.
Chat still saying Surf Ninjas is going to be great.
Is that Marco?
Definitely is Marco.
It's definitely Marco.
Marco.
Marco made a bot farm and spamming the chat. Surf Ninjas is the best movie ever. Surf
a lot of
Ninjas
people
10
like
out of
Surf
10.
Ninjas.
Wow, man, I mean, I was gonna not watch
I guess
it,
I'm
but
excited for it now.
When people say people get what they want.
People be saying that. All right, so last thoughts on Con Air here. So let me do a quick questionnaire here. And if you guys don't have this prepared yet, if you guys can't think of it, that's okay. But what are your top 5 movies of all time, in order? Like you give like your and this is to clarify. If you have like a series, right? If it's the Matrix series or the Star Wars fill in the blank, that all just counts as one movie.
Cool.
Or it can count as a specific movie. Like we started the Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, good but not great. Pirates of the Caribbean 1, excellent. So if it's something like Pirates of the Caribbean, you can also just say, oh, just the first movie or something. But they all will only represent one spot in your slot. What are your top 5
Got it.
movies?
I think Ghostbusters 2016.
Okay.
American
Yeah, I was wondering if we were
Beauty,
doing this for real.
Transformers 4 for sure. That didn't feel like an eternity.
You guys suck.
Peter Pan.
Mummy Returns.
Good luck not being girls.
So I know I can lift. So here's the thing: Lord of the Rings kind of supersedes everything.
Yeah, I think we can
So
all
I'm not putting
agree.
that on my list
Let's
because
just
it's just
not put
the Lord of the Rings is
okay,
just the
so we're not-
greatest
it is-
trilogy of all time.
it will
and
be the
we've all
GOAT
agreed
forever.
that it's in its own tier. Of,
Yes.
it's its own echelon.
Yes.
So I would say the Star Wars trilogy, the original trilogy, is really close to up there. But I would say my top 5 movies, and I don't necessarily order them because I could watch all of these at any time. Remember the Titans, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Princess Bride, The Court Jester, and Zootopia.
Top 5 movies. Okay. What are you?
It's a wild list. I think it's great. It couldn't be more different than my list. I got
Ghostbusters 2016.
Good Will Hunting, number
Last
1.
Jedi.
Silence of the Lambs. Green Mile, Inception, No Country for Old Men.
Wow.
Very dark list.
I think my 5 would be Fight Club.
Bookending was better.
Signs, Inception,
Oh, Signs, dude.
and there are a lot of people fighting for this last 2 spots.
Signs, man. Wow.
It bounces around
The
a
Last
whole
Jedi.
bunch. Names like
Planet of the Apes too.
names like The Sixth Sense and
You can't have 2 Shyamalan ding dongs on there.
and that's and then Interstellar or The Prestige
Can't have
also
2 Nolans on
kind
there.
of want to fight their way in there.
Nolan might be the only deserving
movies
one.
like The Patriot. So I'm gonna put my last 2 as
The Last Samurai.
that one's there too. It's right there. But
Patriot
I'm
Arrow.
actually gonna say
Spike is too.
no. I'm going to say what's the
Lady and the Tramp remake.
Stop saying words, you idiot.
Greg, you have to spit it out.
I'm
or else
about.
Nathaniel's
Well, I'm
going to
thinking of the
continue.
name. Okay,
I'm trying to think of
The
all the terrible
Social
movies we watched.
Network is number 4.
Great. Social Network's great.
And then I'm putting
Gladiator.
I'm putting Con Air at number 5.
That's bold. I think it's good. Like I think it's really. I knew, and the same thing is, I knew you asked that question because you're like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
there
putting
had to
Con
be a
Air in your
reason
top
for
five.
it.
I think I
I
realized
think that's fair. Like in terms of a movie enjoyment, it's definitely up there. It's a great movie.
After,
It's definitely up
after watching, I just realized that I'm like, I just like watching this movie. It's just fun. Like I could watch it with my parents when I get home. I think they'd like it. I could watch it again with you guys. I will watch it again on July 14th, and I'm excited. Like that date could be closer, and I'd still be excited.
That's one of the things that forms my top 5 movies. Is those are movies I could sit down and
Yes.
watch with anyone.
Yeah.
Totally.
Which I would want to sit down and watch Lord of the Rings with anyone, but I don't think I could sit down and watch Lord of the Rings with anyone. Whereas those 5 movies, I think I could get
Yeah.
anyone to watch.
and that's ultimately
And
like
I can at any time I'm happy to watch them.
the,
Sit down
the,
and watch
the
those.
last 2 on my top 5 list are there for those reasons exactly. Like I think that there are different reasons why movies could make it into anybody's top 5, and for a lot of like with me, and this is just kind of a theme with the things that I like and the ways that I talk about movies, is that I enjoy when a movie is done well because I enjoy the finer points of filmmaking. It's what I do for a living, and it's interesting to me. So typically the movies that I really like are really good movies. And I'm not saying that these movies are bad, but I wouldn't say that The Social Network or Con Air are necessarily like they're not going to be renowned, and people aren't going to be like, oh, these are incredible movies. But I have
I
recognized
disagree. I think Social Network is regarded as an incredible movie.
I don't think it's regarded as
it was voted. It
incredible.
was
It's
voted.
alright.
No. It is.
That was the
I'm
Zuck
assuring
Facebook
you
farm.
is.
It was the Zuck Bucks. He bought the review.
It was voted by like a reputable source the greatest movie of the 21st century.
Really?
It was bought off with Zuck Bucks.
It is
Okay,
very
all right.
well regarded.
Well, then I'll give it that. I maybe what I would say is like I have a hard time explaining why I think that movie is done so well.
Have you ever met anyone who didn't like the Social Network?
Most people are like, yeah, it was good.
It's funny because everyone I've asked that almost everyone
Ask
I know
me.
loves the Social
Like
Network.
I have
and
a
love
weird,
it too.
I have
Ask
a weird
me.
connection.
You like
How
Social
do you
Network?
feel about it?
Never seen it. I have no idea.
Well,
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
I have a weird connection.
Doesn't
that
seem like my
it,
kind of
it
movie.
really It's like one of the only movies that I have ever. And I did this. It was really weird. I watched it in a drive home, and I immediately started it over again to watch it again. And I was like, wow, this is weird that I like this movie this much that I could actually just. And I did. And I watched it over again. I don't know why. And then I sat there. I'm like, why do I like this
Sigh.
movie so much? It's
Gennaro.
weird. And
That's
Con
a
Air
rock.
has a similar feel to where I'm like, I just kind of want to go back and watch these scenes in this movie. I want to watch the Steve Buscemi moments where he leans over and he talks to Poe. I want to watch Poe give his corny line after beating somebody up. I want to watch them introduce all the different bad guys onto the plane, and then see Sai give his little monologue.
That was like a fight night, or like a football East meets West. This guy raped 23 people. And like,
I mean, it's just like, and I can't. Maybe I put them in the same category because I wouldn't be able to sit there and justify them and talk about them as much as I could my top 3 movies, which is Fight Club, Signs, and Inception, as being kind of like my big 3. And all those other movies I've talked about fighting for those bottom 2 spots, I might be able to, on an argument level, say that those are better movies. But I just don't have the draw to go back and watch them like these two. So I think maybe just for the kid inside of me, that for the actual enjoyment, just for a Greg list, I'm going to put them both there. And I mean, it changes over time. You always just go through phases where you're like, I don't really like that movie as much. I don't watch the Star Wars movies as much. I used to be an incredible Star Wars fan, like humongous. Like everything that I owned was like a Star Wars themed something. And I could quote all the movies, all 6. I mean, it was just a huge fan. And then the new ones started coming out.
Dork.
And I was...
Fucking nerd.
See, here's the thing. I would still call myself a Star Wars fan,
well,
even though
it's-
even though new Star Wars is terrible. The original trilogy, I will still go back and watch. I still love it just as much.
And I have that same feel where I'm like, I always say that. I'm like, oh yeah, Star Wars original 6, yeah, you put those. But I've slowly started to realize that I'm like, I just don't like my Star Wars stuff as much. I'm like, I'm just kind of embarrassed. It's so weaponized now as this machine of money making that's what I think of when I think Star Wars. Everybody's like,
So
oh,
corporate.
Baby Yoda, and I'm just like, oh gosh. It's just sickening what Star Wars has become. The video games, whatever, everything about it, it's just gotten really bad. So
You hear the remaking Battlefront, the good ones?
yeah, I know. Well, remaking, I think I
remastering?
hear it's being released like in a few days.
Well,
So
have to check it
I
out.
feel like I don't even know if it's a remastering or remaking or what, but yeah, I know they're coming out. Either way, though, that's where I'd put my current top 5. I thought it was relevant considering we just watched Con Air, and that's a new addition to my top 5, but it might change. Who knows?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right, so people, what did we decide scheduling wise? What do we want to tell the folks at home?
We are going to be rating a bunch of movies. So show up, and we're going to talk about briefly why we think these movies were good or bad. And so let's talk about some of the series. Let me pull up the list of series. You know what? I'm just gonna say off the top of my
Couldn't have
head.
been any worse.
We watched the Planet of the Apes. We watched all the Transformers. We watched
scene out of a
all
movie.
the Terminators, all the Aliens, all the. Help me out, Greg.
Okay,
we
we've
watched
gone
all
through
the Bourne
Transformers.
movies.
Pirates of the
Transformers,
Caribbean, you might
Bourne,
watch by then.
well, we've only watched one of those.
We're getting through those with Liam. We waited
we
for
watched
him.
all the Lethal Weapons. We watched all the
We said it.
Terminators.
Oh gosh,
Oh boy,
yeah,
there were
we
some
did.
stinkers in there.
We watched all the. We've already done Batman. Oh yeah,
Batman.
We're
We
gonna be
watched all the Batman
Yeah,
movies.
we watched all the Batman movies.
We watched. There were some stinkers there too. Oh boy.
We watched the Underworld movies. We watched.
Said Aliens, Predators.
What's the Vin Diesel movie?
Oh, all the
watched
Fast
all the
and
Fast and the
Furious.
Furiouses.
Oh, goodness.
The other ones.
Oh,
the Chronicles of
Riddick's one.
The Chronicles of Ridiculous. We watched those as well.
Where is it? Here we go. Back to the Futures, X-Men, Mad Maxes, all the Mission
jeez.
Impossible, all the Matrixes, all the Rockies, all the John Wicks, all the Equalizers. So
So, anyways, we'll
lots
be
of movie series, and we're gonna
rank
rank
all
of them.
That will
So,
be in
I
two,
guarantee there's been a movie that you've watched and have opinions on.
that will be in 2
in
weeks
2
from
weeks.
today. It'll be Nathaniel and I.
gonna do a tier list.
We might incorporate a guest to help us just flip the screen. I don't know. Maybe we'll put them back here in my seat just to have them do the hard work. But
Yeah.
So until then, we say a long goodbye to Liam. We will see you in 4 weeks, and to you all, we
I'll
say
let my hand
that
go
we
back
will
and
see you. We will see you in a couple weeks, and
Sigh.
Anara. Goodbye, folks.
My head is so itchy right now.
I'm still on.